Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you have had a fantastic Wednesday so far. We are diving in to the Antonio Brown allegations. We're going to walk you through them probably in a more intelligent and detailed fashion than you'll get anywhere else in sports media. Talk to you about some of the complexity surrounding these allegations and more. And then at the end, we'll have a little bit of fun talking about Odell Beckham Jr.'s watch, which is clearly a not very serious story. So let's begin here. Antonio Brown's diva behavior, from head with all of the issues with his helmet to toe with all of the issues with his feet in the cryotherapy chamber, followed up by the racial slur, the feuding with Mike Mayock, all of it is relatively minor in the grand scheme of things. It's drama, but it's not drama with a capital D, and it certainly isn't that significant in terms of the larger scale issues at play. That all changed last night around 9 Eastern when a complaint alleging that Antonio Brown had raped a former LSU gymnast who he'd hired as a trainer went public and turned into a huge story that is continuing to unfold as we speak. Right now, Antonio Brown has taken the number 1 for the New England Patriots, and he is practicing. He has not yet been in any way suspended or disciplined by the NFL, by the Patriots, or by anyone else. So let's begin here with the basics of this lawsuit. I will walk you through all of them and all of their grisly details. I will answer your questions at some point. If you want a longer form version of what we're about to do here that has FCC restrictions, you can go listen to the Outkick the Coverage podcast, because I think we did a really good job of it this morning covering this show on radio. But here we go. Buckle up. Here are some of the pertinent details of this lawsuit. Let's begin here. Most basic outline. This is a lawsuit in a civil court seeking damages for alleged acts of misbehavior which occurred in 2017 and in 2018 by a woman whose name is, I'm going to pull up the name here, this woman, it's public name, Britney Taylor. She is a 28-year-old graduate of LSU who initially met Antonio Brown when she was a gymnast at Central Michigan, and he was a football player there. She then transferred to LSU, by all accounts was a very good gymnast there on a very talented LSU gymnastics team. Antonio Brown later reached out to her through Facebook and asked her to come work as a trainer for him to work on strengthening his ankles and other areas like that in his legs to be better for his job, because she had worked as a gymnast and she was still working as a gymnast. She now lives, according to what I've read, in Memphis, where she works as a gymnastics trainer. And so let's go ahead and dive into these complaints. She alleges that she was hired and brought to work for Antonio Brown in 2017. And when she was there, that Antonio Brown initially exposed himself and requested sex from her. She declined it. And then this is the second act that is getting a lot of attention. I will read directly from the complaint. This is what Britney alleges in her complaint. It's a civil complaint. I'll explain the difference between a civil court and a criminal court here shortly. She says that during their college Christian fellowship days, they often read scriptures, prayed, or watched services together. I'm reading directly from the complaint. During training visits. On this day, where the second sexual assault she alleges occurred, Brown was behind Miss Taylor as they watched a religious service on her tablet. She says, unbeknownst to Mrs. Taylor, this is the woman who filed the lawsuit, while she was focused on the religious video, Brown began masturbating behind her. Before she knew it or understood what was happening, Brown ejaculated on her. Specifically, Miss Taylor, again, this I'm reading directly from the complaint in the civil suit. Specifically, Miss Taylor felt a wet spot on her back and then suddenly realized what had happened. Thoroughly disgusted, Miss Taylor exclaimed, "Ooh." Brown, unfazed by her reaction, jokingly responded, oh, bitch, you know, I'm sorry, and then left the room. All right, that's allegation number one. Now, she accompanies that with an email that she alleges Antonio Brown sent to her. All right, she alleges in this email, I'm going to try to read it. I have no idea if you'll understand this. This is an email that is included in the complaint that she alleges was sent by Antonio Brown. All right, are you ready? This is Antonio Brown. I'm reading it unedited. I got to take a drink before I read this unedited email. I jacked my dick on your back, slept with you in bed. Exclamation points. Fuck your knowledge, bitch. I've been all pro before I even knew you. You hit me up online, bitch, crying. I didn't hit you up. You never left my house since you had hotel. You fell asleep on my couch. Fuck out of here, my baby mama, trick your dumb ass. Blast me, you're a failure, telling everybody you own a gym. What you gon' blast, don't fucking write my phone line, bitch. Thought it was easy to get a come up. Using God alias fake ass hoe, you and your mama thought y'all hoes had a come up. Fuck out of here, don't write my team. All right, continuing. This is Antonio Brown via email. Thanks for giving us control of your life for 3 weeks. Next time you and your mama plotting on a come up, make sure you all hoes pick the right man, dumbass hoes. Maybe somebody you already fucked your mama controlling your life like she gonna help the come up. You failed at gymnast, you and nobody, me and somebody who's blocked out. I'll laugh about this shit, me bussing on your back. I'll let him know when I'm bored. You a disgrace to little girls. You a failed gymnast living in the past at your mama house with your mama. Lucky I showed you around, you're welcome. My baby mama knew know a weak bitch when she spot one, you played yourself. There are also some emoticons in here. All right? I got no idea what in the world is going on, frankly, in much of this email. But it is not favorable to the Central Michigan University Academic Scholarship Fund that somehow AB managed to stay enrolled while at Central Michigan when he writes emails such as these. All right? I don't know what kind of academic fraud they got working at Central Michigan, but if Antonio Brown stayed eligible, based on that email I just read to you guys, somebody was cheating their ass off at Central Michigan to keep him eligible. All right, so that is an email that is excerpted directly from the civil complaint. Later, the allegations get even more serious. All right, later the allegations get even more serious. They went out in 2018, she alleges. They went out to a club in Miami. They chatted for a few minutes. And when Miss Taylor went to walk out of the room, Brown cornered her and pulled her down on the bed on her stomach. This is directly from the complaint, pushing her face down into the mattress. She attempted to physically resist, but he pinned her down so that she was unable to fight back. As she struggled, he lifted her dress and told her, "You know you want this." Miss Taylor pleaded with him, shouting no and stop, but Brown refused and proceeded with great violence to penetrate her. Miss Taylor protested and cried the entire time. When Brown finally released her, Miss Taylor stood up in a state of trauma and shock, crying in front of him. All right, so those are the most pertinent details of this allegation that has been levied. Before I answer any questions about this, let me go back a couple of spaces and talk about this. This is a civil lawsuit that has been filed in federal court in South Florida. What is the difference between a civil and a criminal lawsuit? Okay, civil lawsuits typically are seeking damages of a monetary nature. They involve plaintiffs who are individuals suing someone else, not criminal cases. A criminal case frequently or almost always will be brought by the state or the federal government, and usually the punishment in a criminal case is designed to put someone behind bars. If it is a felony, obviously there are lower level offenses which are not designed to end in physical incarceration, okay? So, an easy way to think about this, and I try to just take it to the most basic level because a lot of people are not very familiar with the justice system. Let's talk about OJ. OJ was found not guilty of double murder, but he was found to be civilly liable. So in the criminal court, he was not guilty of murder, which is why OJ is not in jail. But in a civil court verdict, he was found responsible for wrongful death and ordered basically to pay out all of his assets to the Goldman and the Nicole Brown families, okay? Why could you get and how could you get different results in those two cases? Well, the answer is pretty straightforward if you really understand the difference between the civil and the criminal justice systems. The civil court standard that is at play is a preponderance of the evidence standard, more likely than not. The easy way to think about this is it's 50% plus a scintilla. If you can get to 50% plus a scintilla, then somebody is responsible under a civil context for a wrongdoing. Therefore, OJ was found to more likely than not have committed murder and have to pay monetary damages. In a criminal court, you have to be found beyond a reasonable doubt guilty, okay? Beyond a reasonable doubt does not have a specific percentage attached to it, but typically you can think of it as this is a 98 or 99% certainty. So you can have situations where individuals are not guilty from a criminal court perspective because jurors do not feel that they are 98 or 99 or 99.9%, however you want to define beyond a reasonable doubt, responsible, and they can also be found to be culpable or responsible for greater than 50% likelihood to have committed a crime. Does that make sense? Okay? Here is a further breakdown of this, all right? The complexity here is also aided by the NFL. The NFL has established for over a decade now a personal conduct policy. The personal conduct policy does not require that you be guilty of a crime or even charged with a crime to miss games. Let me give you some examples. Ezekiel Elliott was specifically cleared by the DA in Ohio who investigated him for domestic assault. I read the report. The NFL still suspended him for 6 games. Ben Roethlisberger was not charged with rape in Georgia in that bar. The NFL still suspended him. Kareem Hunt was not charged for kicking the girl in that video. He has still been put on the commissioner's exempt list and suspended by the NFL for the rest of last season plus 8 games this year. Tyreek Hill was not allowed to attend or be at the Kansas City Chiefs facility while the investigation into child abuse was ongoing, but he was not suspended by the NFL. This woman has said that she will cooperate with the NFL's investigation. And this is significant in a statement. Again, she is 28 years old. She went to LSU. She has said as follows, again, that she intends to speak with the NFL, and this is a direct statement from her through her attorneys. As a rape victim of Antonio Brown, deciding to speak out has been an incredibly difficult decision. I have found strength in my faith, my family, and from the accounts of other survivors of sexual assault. Speaking out removes the shame that I have felt for the past year and places it on the person responsible for my rape. I will cooperate with the NFL and any other agencies. However, at this time, I respectfully request that the media please respect my privacy. All right? Now, why does this matter? In theory now, the NFL is going to be conducting their own investigation into whether or not Antonio Brown raped this girl. Now, let me get on my soapbox for a minute and give you my opinion. I have been arguing for years that Roger Goodell's decision to create the NFL personal conduct policy is the worst single decision that I have seen a commissioner make in my lifetime. Because the NFL, in my opinion, has absolutely no business investigating players for entirely off-the-field related incidents. Moreover, sexual assault investigations are among the most difficult to investigate in all of the criminal justice system. Why, if it is difficult for the courts and the government to investigate these cases, police, investigators, everybody else. Does the NFL think that they are suddenly going to be able to determine the truth of a he said, she said allegation with their own investigation? It just doesn't make any sense at all. Roger Goodell was trying to protect the NFL, and in the process, instead of protecting the NFL, he directly put them in conflict with players and also gave them an incredibly difficult job, which is almost impossible to do well. And if you doubt this, Ray Rice got off with a lenient punishment from the NFL. But he got off with an even more lenient punishment from the state of New Jersey. He was on video knocking out his then fiance. The state of New Jersey knew this and still allowed him to plead guilty to a crime which got him probation. Nobody focused on what the state of New Jersey did to Ray Rice. Everybody focused on what the NFL did to Ray Rice. Somehow Roger Goodell ended up getting blamed for Ray Rice's decisions, and everybody missed the fact that if you want to be angry about the punishments for domestic violence, you should be angry with the criminal justice system, not with the NFL. This is an illogical decision that is not rooted in solid decision-making by Roger Goodell in any stretch of the imagination. Having said that, let's go back to this case. I'll circle back to the NFL in a minute. Let me go ahead and say this. The NFL will conduct their own investigation. The standard that the NFL applies is the civil suit standard, not the criminal justice standard. This means if the NFL investigation determines it's more likely than not that Antonio Brown committed rape, he will have violated the NFL personal conduct policy and he will be suspended. Let me say this. Can you imagine the reaction that will ensue if the NFL determines that Antonio Brown committed rape and they only suspend him for 6 or 8 games? I think most people out there are going to naturally think if you commit rape and you get 4 games for smoking weed, you should get a little bit more than 6 games for raping someone. Smoking weed, 4 games. Taking HGH, 4 games. Raping someone, 6 games. I think a lot of people are going to say that is absolutely ludicrous. So I think the NFL is setting itself up for a big problem here if they determine that this event was more likely than not to have happened. If the NFL, on the other hand, doesn't determine it's more likely than not to have occurred, then they're effectively calling this woman a liar, which will also turn into a big, ugly incident for the NFL unless it's 100% clear that she is caught in a lie. Now, anybody who has ever watched this show, listened to it, paid attention to me for very long, knows that I abhor identity politics being brought into the equation when it comes to guilt or innocence. I don't believe hashtag believe all women, and I don't hashtag believe all men. I don't believe all Muslims. I don't believe all Christians. I don't believe all gays. I don't believe all straights. I don't believe all blacks. I don't believe all whites. I don't believe all Asians. I don't believe all transgender people. I don't believe anybody based on their identity. I go to the facts themselves. So here are the questions that I would raise on both sides of the equation here. All right, let's start here. This woman alleges that Antonio Brown ejaculated on her without her consent or knowledge while she was watching religious videos in 2017. If that happened to her, let's assume the truth of that allegation. Why in the world would she go back to work for Antonio Brown the next year? I think that's a problematic fact pattern for her, okay? If that actually occurred, why would you choose to go back to work for this man again the next year? She may say it's because he apologized, whatever else. That still seems like a highly unlikely decision that someone would make. All right? Here's the other question. What is the status of a criminal investigation in this case? If her complaint is 100% true, let's presume that she is telling the truth. Why is there not a simultaneous criminal investigation that is taking place in this case as well? If I were advising her before we filed the civil lawsuit which seeks monetary damages, I would want this man to be held accountable for what he did to me, not just be able to cut a check for what he did to me. He's rich. I would not want just his money. You may want to sue him civilly and make him pay for what he did to you, but I would also want him to go to jail. I would want this man to be convicted. I would want to testify against him. I would want him to be locked up and put behind bars. So, I think there's an interesting question here, which we have tried to look up and so far not found any evidence of. Is there or was there or will there be a criminal investigation that is simultaneously taking place at the same time as this civil lawsuit plays itself out? That's a significant factor. Why? Because if I were advising Antonio Brown, if there is a criminal investigation that is opened up, I would advise Antonio Brown not to cooperate with the NFL investigation. Because as a lawyer, the first thing that you tell your client is shut up and deny. Do not sit for an investigation with police officers. Do not answer their questions. Certainly don't talk to the NFL when their report could theoretically be used against you in any criminal prosecution if they find evidence that contradicts what you have said. So I believe that this is significant and the most important aspect of this case right now. Will there, was there, or could there still be a criminal investigation into Antonio Brown's conduct? Because it's still within the statute of limitations. And in my opinion, if it actually happened, then she should be pursuing criminal proceedings as well as filing a civil lawsuit. What will happen? I think this is an incredibly difficult place for the Patriots, for the NFL, and for Antonio Brown to find themselves. If I were advising Antonio Brown, I would make the decision to settle this lawsuit because I don't want her talking to the NFL, I don't want her talking to the police, and I certainly don't want her talking to the media either. From a pure business perspective, if there are evidentiary aspects of this case that make your own guilt or innocence in question, then I want to eliminate this danger on behalf of my client. I am surprised that this would go public like it has. There has been some statements already made in Pennsylvania about investigating this case, but the alleged incident took place in South Florida in the Miami area. We don't know if it was City of Miami. We don't know if it was Dade County. We don't know if it was Miami Beach. We don't know if it was Broward County because I haven't seen anybody say where Antonio Brown lives. But I would advise him, and I imagine his attorney would advise as well, that he should settle this case. One possibility that is out there is that the NFL could decide to put Antonio Brown on their commissioner's exempt list. That way, he is not eligible to play, but he hasn't officially been suspended while this investigation is proceeding. As if that were not a big enough deal, the wild card that is currently in play here is that Antonio Brown is scheduled to go where? He's scheduled to go play a game in Miami this weekend. Maybe the timing of this lawsuit could be predicated in some way on the fact that Antonio Brown has to go to South Florida to where this jurisdiction of this lawsuit is, and the individual who filed the complaint here could want Miami police to confront Antonio Brown and question him about her alleged rape at that point in time when he is in their jurisdiction where he theoretically would have to decline to answer their questions if they showed up. I'm not sure if that was part of the calculus of filing the complaint this week. I don't know that for certain, but it is certainly an ironic aspect here that Antonio Brown will be getting on a plane and going to Miami where he is alleged to have committed a rape. All right? So the end result here is this is an incredible mess for Antonio Brown. It isn't likely to be resolved during the course of this football season unless he decides to try to settle this case by paying her off. In the meantime, the NFL investigation, one would think, would take weeks, if not months, what in the world do the Patriots do? How do they handle this uncertainty surrounding Antonio Brown? How ugly could this incident get as the details continue to come out and as more of the investigative process takes place? Can they really play him on Sunday in Miami? Right now, the latest I've seen is that he's at practice and the Patriots aren't planning to do anything to discipline him. As if this weren't enough, remember, Robert Kraft also has his own South Florida sexual shenanigans, which could make it difficult for Robert Kraft to discipline Antonio Brown, because Robert Kraft has never stepped back from his position as owner of the Patriots while maintaining his innocence in the South Florida area over the happy ending that allegedly took place at a massage parlor. So certainly if the Patriots cut bait with Antonio Brown over this allegation, there could be some discussion of why Robert Kraft gets the presumption of innocence as the owner and why the player in Antonio Brown does not get the presumption of innocence on behalf of the Patriots. So I think that factors in as well. Now, to be fair, the allegation of wrongdoing against Robert Kraft, essentially paying for a rub and tug, is a lot less significant than the allegations against Antonio Brown, which would be criminal rape, which would end up in substantial prison time if someone were found guilty of that charge. So the Patriots could argue that Kraft's allegations are so much less severe than Antonio Brown that explains the difference in treatment. But I think you have to factor that in as a part of their decision in this process as well. All right, I think I laid out everything and answered basically every angle. But I now, for Facebook or Twitter here on Periscope, what questions would you guys have here? Somebody said, how exactly can she prove he raped her? She can't, probably. But can she make it seem more likely than not that it occurred? Certainly. We don't know all the evidence that she might have of an alleged rape occurring. And to be fair, we don't know all the exculpatory evidence that Antonio Brown might have that says that he didn't rape her. So we have seen a small part of the evidence so far, which is via the complaint that she filed. So can he be fired for a civil charge? Certainly. This is a civil lawsuit, but certainly a team could decide, you know what, when we signed you, we didn't anticipate that you were going to get accused of rape in a lawsuit. This is highly embarrassing and damaging to the overall Patriot brand. We don't want to be associated with you. We are going to void your contract. You are a free agent. Again, another team has the right to sign you. That certainly, I think, could be a decision that the Patriots make. And that is something that I think will factor out there. Antonio Brown's attorney, as well as Drew Rosenhaus on SportsCenter, said this was a clear attempt to get money, and that this is a money grab. That seems to be the essence of his defense, that he had consensual sex with her and that she's looking out for money. The email that she quoted in the complaint, assuming that it is real, assuming that email is real and valid and came from Antonio Brown, certainly does not help him very much in the court of public opinion. And Antonio Brown is not helped by his overall behavior the past couple of weeks as everything has unspooled surrounding him. But to be fair, the helmet, the foot issue, feuding with the Raiders, all of that is relatively inconsequential compared to an allegation of rape. All right, any other questions that are out there? Yes, I think if I were advising her, I would have told her to file a criminal complaint, an allegation, to open up a criminal investigation into rape at the same time that we file this civil lawsuit. Because if an independent third party, i.e. the police, is conducting an investigation into this case, if they decide to press charges, that helps her. If they don't decide to press charges, it still creates a large evidentiary basis, and it also allows her to say, hey, I'm not just looking for money in this case. I also believe that he should be held to justice in the criminal courts. So I think she is helped in the larger context if she files a criminal complaint at the same time that she files a civil suit. Yes, there are always statutes of limitations in these cases, both civil and criminal. I'm not an expert on Florida law, so I can't tell you what the statutory limitations would be for the lawsuits in a civil context. A lot of times they are 2 years, and she alleges that she was raped last year. Somebody else out there who's better at Florida law will likely know what the statutory limitations are from a civil lawsuit perspective. Also, the criminal courts have statutes of limitations. I don't know off the top of my hand what the statutes say when it comes to rape, but if there's a clear statute of rape, and it would clearly be within that term, I believe, for rape. I'm sure that she alleges she was raped in May of 2018. Certainly it would still be under the criminal code that she would be able to allege rape. The investigation timeline of a civil suit would likely take well into next year if it were going to be resolved through the court system in South Florida. The NFL's investigation could theoretically take a month or less if they aggressively pursued it. There's not a lot of people to talk to. Would Antonio Brown cooperate in that investigation? I haven't heard what he said, but she has said that she would cooperate. That's something that could be resolved in the fall, in October or November, in theory, if the NFL put their full force behind it. Is that official? She has said she'll meet with the NFL. So I used to conduct sexual harassment investigations, and so I would sit and talk with the women who allege they have been sexually harassed, and then the men as well. And I would conduct my own internal sexual harassment investigations on behalf of companies as a lawyer, as a young lawyer when I was practicing law. And I can just tell you they're incredibly difficult. All the time, he said, she said cases are incredibly difficult to determine. I know people like to say, oh, it's easy to tell who's lying. It's easy to tell who's telling the truth. It's not necessarily that easy at all. In fact, it's oftentimes very difficult when you're just sitting talking to somebody and two people are telling different stories. It's oftentimes very difficult to tell the difference. I know we sell this idea in the media of like, oh, you put somebody on a witness stand, it's easy to tell who the liar is and who the truth teller is. I will tell you that having sat across and done some of these cross-examinations and question witnesses, it's not very easy at all. So again, the NFL personal conduct policy comes in. We've got several different areas of potential justice at play here. The civil court system, the NFL's personal conduct policy, and the criminal court system. And all three of those theoretically could have their own different and divergent outcomes. So there are three different elements of the law that could be in play here. The personal conduct policy, where Roger Goodell has the ability to suspend players for off-the-court criminal-related or non-criminal-related conduct. The civil court system, which is where she has filed her lawsuit right now, and the criminal court system. The standard for personal conduct policy and for the civil court is the preponderance of the evidence, more likely than not. I believe 50% plus a hair that Antonio Brown raped her, he's responsible. The criminal court standard is beyond a reasonable doubt, and that standard is incredibly high, 98, 99, 99.9, whatever you want to say, standard in order to put somebody guilty of a criminal offense. So that is the whole universe of what could be going on with Antonio Brown right now. All right, I think I answered all of your questions. Quickly on Odell Beckham Jr. Odell, stop complaining because people are paying attention to the fact that you wore a multi-$100,000 watch on the football field. Odell Beckham Jr., have a little bit of fun here. Let's get outside of the serious case here with Antonio Brown. Odell Beckham Jr. is saying that everybody out there is after him because it's him. No. You wore this watch for attention. You got the attention. There's no need to have a watch on your wrist. I don't even know anybody who needs to have a watch in real life right now. All you need to do is look up at the scoreboard. That's the only clock you need to be concerned with. And I don't have a watch now. I just use my phone. Right now it's 2:36. It's easy to know what time it is. This is ridiculous. You are getting paid to wear an expensive watch because of the attention you will get wearing that watch. Complaining about the fact that you have a watch and people are paying attention to it on the football field is absurd. Odell Beckham Jr. is being ridiculous here. Play football. Don't worry about what time it is. I think what was going to happen was Odell wanted to score a touchdown, and then he wanted to look down at his watch in celebration and say, you know what time it is, because of all the attention he would get if he did that. The Titans whipped his ass, and he didn't score a touchdown. So now everybody's sitting around saying, why did he have a watch on the football field? The answer was he was going to try to get a big-time endorsement by pointing at the watch. It's time for me to start making plays. It's time for me to score, whatever the line was going to be. Instead, he didn't do it. And now he looked ridiculous for wearing a watch on the football field, and the NFL probably should prohibit it because it's not safe to wear a watch on the football field. I love all of you. I'll be live on Lock It In, 4:30 Eastern, 3:30 Central, 2:30 Mountain, 1:30 Pacific. My name is Clay Travis. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. If you got friends who are interested in this Antonio Brown case, I would just about guarantee you that nobody in the world of sports media is going to do a better job explaining all the complexities to you than I just did. Share this show with them. Say, watch this. This will give you a good sense of what exactly is going on. Love you. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. See you a little bit on Lock It In, and see you tomorrow on my radio show and on my TV show and on Periscope and Facebook. See you guys. Love you. Thank you, Facebook.